र पुरुष बराबरीको नाराहरू मैले जब पहिलोचोटि सुने त्यति बेला म अलिकति कन्फ्युज भएको थिएँ, किनभने हजुरबुवा र हजुरआमासँग हुर्केकी मेरो घरमा मैले खासै असमानता देखेकी थिइनँ। मेरो हजुरबुवाले पनि कुच्चो लगाउनुहुन्थ्यो, खाना पकाउनुहुन्थ्यो, भाँडा माझ्नुहुन्थ्यो, त्यो पनि महिनाको 4 दिन मात्र होइन, अरू बेलामा पनि गर्नुहुन्थ्यो। अनि हजुरबुवालाई मन्दिर जान भनेर आफू चाहिँ खाना बनाएर बस्नुहुन्थ्यो। उहाँहरू सबै काम मिलेर गर्नुहुन्थ्यो। अनि श्राद्धको बेलामा पनि पिठो मुछेर सानो सानो डल्लो बनाएर बुवाले बनाइदिनुहुन्थ्यो, अनि मुवाले चाहिँ रोटी बेलेर पुरी बनाउनुहुन्थ्यो। मेरो हजुरबुवाको सोचाइ त्यो बेलाको आम पुरुषहरूको भन्दा अलिकति फरक नै थियो। 2टा नातिनी जन्मिसकेपछि जब मेरो भाइ जन्मियो, त्यसपछि मैले मेरो हजुरबुवामा एउटा छुट्टै किसिमको उल्लास, अब मलाई गर्ने माया पनि कम चाहिँ भएको थिएन, तर पनि आफ्नो कुलको पहिलो नाति जन्मिँदाखेरिको जुन खुसी मैले हजुरबुवामा महसुस गरेँ, त्यति बेला मलाई बल्ल फिल भयो सायद महिला र पुरुषको भिन्नता भनेको यही होला। अनि जब ठुलो हुँदै गएँ र समाज र आफ्नो परिवेशलाई बुझ्दै गएँ, त्यस बेला मलाई थाहा भयो भिन्नता त अझै धेरै रहेछ। जब छोरा र छोरीको मर्यादाको फरक थाहा पाउन थालेँ, त्यसपछि एक किसिमको विद्रोह नै सुरु भयो। पहिला आफ्नै परिवारबाट, भाइले खाना खाएको भाँडा माझ्दैन, मैले चाहिँ किन माझ्नु पर्ने, भाइ चाहिँ ढिलो घर आयो भने मलाई चाहिँ किन यस्तो करानी। अनि म पनि साथीहरूसँग स्कुलबाट टुरमा जान्छु। पहिला परिवार, स्कुल, कलेज, कार्यक्षेत्र हुँदै आफ्नो समाजसँग यो दशकौँ बितिसक्दाखेरि पनि यो कृत्रिम भिन्नतालाई तोड्ने कोसिस जारी नै छ। र यो किसिमको भोगाई मेरो मात्र होइन, तपाईँहरूको पनि हो। यो किसिमको विद्रोह मेरो मात्र होइन, तपाईँहरूको पनि हो। र महिला र पुरुषको भिन्नताको कथा नेपालीको मात्र होइन, संसारभरिको कथा हो। यो कोसिस महिलाको मात्र पनि होइन, महिलालाई साथ दिने पुरुषको पनि हो। यो त हामी सबैको सङ्घर्षको कथा हो। यस्तै सङ्घर्ष सुरु भएको थियो 115 वर्ष अगाडि। जर्मन सोसियलिस्ट क्लारा जेटकिनको प्रस्ताव स्वीकार गर्दै सन् 1911मा सुरु भएको इन्टरनेसनल वुमेन्स डे सेलिब्रेसन आजको दिनसम्म आइपुग्दाखेरि हामीले ती सङ्घर्षका कथाहरू फरक भएका छन्। महिलाले पनि भोट गर्न पाउनुपर्छ भनेर विरोध र्यालीहरू अहिले निकाल्न नपर्ला, तर पनि महिलाको रिप्रेजेन्टेसन स्पेसली लिडरसिपमा र इकोनोमिक इनइक्वालिटीको विरुद्धमा अहिले पनि आवाज उठाउन परिरहेकै छ। यो महिला र पुरुषको भिन्नता मेट्ने जुन प्रगति भएको छ, त्यो प्रगति अहिलेकै गतिमा जाने हो भनेदेखि त्यो भिन्नता मेट्नको लागि चाहिँ अझ 133 वर्ष लाग्दो रहेछ वर्ल्ड इकोनोमिक फोरमको डेटा अनुसार। त्यसैले त्यो गतिलाई अझ द्रुत रूपमा अगाडि बढाउनको लागि यो वर्षको थीम रहेको छ एक्सेलरेटेड एक्सन। NCNCले महिला सशक्तिकरणमा होस्टेमा हैसे गर्दै प्रत्येक वर्ष इन्टरनेसनल वुमेन्स डे आयोजना गर्दै आइरहेको छ। विगतका वर्षहरूमा NRNA इन्टरनेसनल लिटरेरी सोसाइटीसँगको सहकार्यमा कार्यक्रम आयोजना हुन्थ्यो भने वर्ष आरम्भ नेपाली लाइब्रेरी र नेपाली वुमेन्स ग्लोबल नेटवर्क NWGN जोडिएर यो कार्यक्रमको शोभा अझै बढेको छ। आजको यस कार्यक्रममा अलिक फरक तरिकाको छ, कन्फरेन्स स्टाइलको छ र दिनभरि नै यहाँहरूले इन्स्पायरिङ वुमेन्सहरूबाट प्रेरणादायी कथाहरू सुन्नुहुनेछ, उहाँहरूको अनुभवहरू सुन्नुहुनेछ। यस नेपाली वुमेन्स समिट इम्पावरिङ, इन्स्पायरिङ एन्ड लिडिङ द फ्युचरमा आउनुभएका सबैजनालाई धेरै धेरै धन्यवाद दिँदै स्वागत गर्न चाहन्छु। महिलालाई हौसला र प्रोत्साहन प्रदान गर्न आउनुभएको पुरुषहरूलाई पनि विशेष स्वागत गर्न चाहन्छु। अझै आज म घरमा छु, तिमी चाहिँ यो कार्यक्रममा जाऊ भनेर प्रोत्साहन गर्नुहुने, घर सम्हालेर बसिदिने हुने पुरुषहरूलाई झन् विशेष धन्यवाद। स्क्रिनमा भएको एजेन्डामा देख्न सक्नुहुनेछ कि आज हाम्रो दिन एकदमै व्यस्त रहनेछ। यो दिनभरिको रोचक कार्यक्रम सञ्चालन गर्नेछौँ मनिका चौलागाई र म मिलेर। मनिका, आजको एजेन्डामा के छ भन्देऊ न त?
आजको हाम्रो एजेन्डामा हाम्रो कीनोट स्पिकर रसेरले आफ्नो अनुभव सुनाउनुहुनेछ। प्यानल डिस्कसनमा एन्टरप्रेन्योरसिप, लिडरसिपका प्रेरणादायी कथाहरू सुन्न पाउनुहुनेछ र लन्चपछि हामी इन्टरनेसनल वुमेन्स डेको विशेष सम्बोधन सुन्नेछौँ। साथै हाम्रो समाजका बढ्दै गएका घरेलु हिंसा र त्यसबाट बस्न सफल सर्भाइभरका सङ्घर्षपूर्ण तर प्रेरणादायी कथाहरू सुन्ने अवसर पनि हुनेछ। त्यसपछि रमाइलो गेम सेसन हुनेछ जसले कार्यक्रमलाई अझ रोचक बनाउनेछ। अनि महिला र साहित्य सम्बन्धी वक्ताहरूले आफ्नो सृजनाहरू प्रस्तुत गर्नुहुनेछ। हाम्रो पहिलो वक्तालाई स्टेजमा आमन्त्रण गर्नुअघि केही महत्त्वपूर्ण जानकारी साझा गर्न चाहन्छु यहाँहरूबीच। कार्यक्रमभर छुट्टै कुनै ब्रेक छैन। ब्रेकको समय भनेको लन्च समय मात्र हुनेछ। यदि हजुरहरूलाई रेस्टरुम जानु परे कृपया 2 जना वक्ताहरूको बिचमा जानुहोला। मुख्य रेस्टरुम हलको भित्र छ, साथै एक्स्ट्रा रेस्टरुम बाहिर पनि उपलब्ध रहेको छ। यदि हजुरहरूलाई गफ गर्न वा छलफल गर्नु परे कृपया बाहिर जानुहोला ताकि वक्ताहरूको प्रस्तुतिमा कुनै प्रकारको डिस्टर्ब नहोस्। समयका लागि महत्त्वपूर्ण छ। प्रत्येक वक्ताहरूले तोकिएको समयमा आफ्नो प्रस्तुति सक्नुपर्नेछ। त्यसैले 2 मिनट बाँकी हुँदा 2 मिनटको साइन, समाप्त हुने बेला 0 मिनटको साइन देखाइनेछ र त्यसपछि स्पिच ऱ्यापअप गर्नुपर्नेछ। टाइम्स अफ सङ्केत देखिएमा समय समाप्त भएको सङ्केत हुनेछ।
सुरुमा म हाम्रो कीनोट स्पिकर डाक्टर सुश्रुता अर्जालको परिचय दिन चाहन्छु। Sususa Arjal, MD, is the owner and CEO of Bliss Sleep and Psychiatry in Morrisville. She is a board-certified psychiatrist and sleep specialist. Previously, she served as an assistant professor in the Department of Psychiatry at Duke University Hospital. She completed her residency at Berkshire Medical Center in Massachusetts and her fellowship at Wake Forest University in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. For several years, she has mentored residents, fellows, and international medical graduates. She also serves on several committees. Dr. Arjal is the chair of the Race, Ethnicity, and Equity Committee of the North Carolina Psychiatric Association. Additionally, she served as Vice President of the Health Foundation Nepal, a non-profit organization dedicated to mental health care in Western Nepal. She lives in North Carolina with her family. In her free time, she enjoys hiking, kayaking, and swimming. Let's all welcome our inspiring keynote speaker, Dr. Sushruta Arjal.
Hello, namaste sabaijanalai, and thank you for having me here. My presentation is primarily going to be in English because I was under the impression that there are a lot of non-Nepali speaking people also. So let me just start my presentation by thanking the organizers for organizing this very important event on this special day of International Women's Day, so that we can gather and we can celebrate. We can look at the challenges, the barriers, and we can also celebrate the success. So thank you very much. And before I begin though, there is one very, very special person that I need to thank. Someone who is, very resilient, the kindest person, the most courageous and fierce person in my life, and she has been and will always be my inspiration, and that's her, and that's my mother. My mom, I'll tell you a little bit about my mother. So she is from Western Nepal, to be very specific, she's from Butwal. So she grew up in a traditional family which was very supportive, but she left her house at the age of 19 to pursue her passion for education and to strive for financial independence. And she had a lot of challenges, a lot of hardships, but she overcame all of that, and many years later, she retired as an associate professor at Sanatini campus. She also served as the chairman of the Department of Mathematics for a number of years, and my mother is my greatest inspiration. So on this occasion, if I could please ask you to put your hands together for my mom. So now, as a psychiatrist and a sleep specialist, right, if we talk about women's health, I can't help but talk about women's mental health, which is also very much related to the physical health, right? So there are certain barriers, like Lavina said, there are certain barriers and challenges that women face all over the world, more or less depending on what part of the world they belong to, depending on the socioeconomic status, perhaps depending on the level of education, level of social support, but more or less they do experience a lot of challenges, right? So when we talk about this, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to talk about the challenges, and I'm going to perhaps talk about some solutions, if we can offer some solutions, and and I'm going to conclude on that. So when we discuss about the challenges, so the healthcare disparity, it is real. So healthcare disparity means when people have different sort of access to healthcare, depending on their gender, depending on their, again, socioeconomic status, and depending on how much time they have for self-care. So when we talk about the access to healthcare, the first thing that we have to talk about is the level of awareness and the level of education that the person has. If someone has that level of awareness, see, there are a lot of different parts of the world. Even we have seen in Nepal, right? They have no access to basic healthcare. They have no access to basic education. And basic healthcare starts with, self-awareness that they need help, right? Self-awareness and the time. So you have to make time for your self-care as well. So that definitely is a big challenge. Then, there is a challenge of proper nutrition. If you don't have access to proper nutrition, or then the healthcare suffers, your mental health suffers, your physical health suffers, and that is a very, very real challenge. We all can perhaps relate to, the evidence that, especially in the, remote areas of Nepal, there is such a lack of awareness and education about things like pregnancy, childbirth, postpartum depression, postpartum blues, postpartum psychosis, anxiety, and there is a lot of stigma about that. So there are a lot of barriers which prevent people from seeking help as well, So that is one of the biggest challenges. Then we talk about, let's say about, in developed countries where, let's say there is not so much of a challenge of accessing the healthcare, but there is the challenge, even in, if you look at the research, there is a little bit of disparity, gender disparity in the research between, females and males. Illnesses that is particular to females are perhaps under research, and we need to emphasize more on that. And also something that, if it is even well researched, we have realized that we failed to understand that same disease can present with different symptoms in males and females. So the healthcare research part needs to put that in consideration, and we need to kind of work towards that. Now that brings me to another very, very, important and interesting topic on disparity, which is the social disparity, and which we perhaps all of us can relate to more or less, to some extent. So the social disparities, what is a social disparity, right? In terms of social disparity, first of all, we have to talk about the unpaid labor. Does that sound familiar? Yeah, the unpaid labor. So, there are studies that even in developed countries, about 50% of unpaid labor and childcare falls on the female. And in what we call underdeveloped countries, the percentage is more than 70%. So what is the problem with that? The problem with so much unpaid labor is it prevents you from doing a paid job. Where is the time? There is no time for paid job. There is no energy for the paid job if you have spent so much time and energy in that. And not to talk about the physical burden, the emotional burden, and the cognitive burden. How many times have we heard, I have to plan 99% of the time. For someone to carry out that task, I'm the one who's doing the planning. So that's the cognitive burden, right? It takes a toll. It takes a physical toll, it takes a mental toll. Because physical and mental health are not very different, So we talk about that, right? We talk about the unpaid labor, we talk about the, burden of, let's just say, even the burden of childbearing responsibility, the whole process, the changes that one goes through in that process. And again, the symptoms of sadness, loneliness of motherhood that sometimes people might feel. No, if they are supported very well, then they might not, but there is certain degree of loneliness and anxiety that comes with motherhood. And if not treated or addressed well, it can turn into full-blown postpartum depression. And the severe form will be postpartum psychosis, in which case the mother can get very paranoid about the baby, can even harm the baby, which is a very, needs psychiatric help. But these are the extensions of what can and might happen. And now, when we talk about, the social aspects of it, we should also talk about the domestic violence. And I know one of my colleagues is going to elaborate on this, so I will just touch upon this subject. But domestic violence is real, it happens, it's more common than we think it is. And the prevalence of domestic violence is definitely more in females than in males. Not to say that males do not suffer from domestic violence, that is not true. But the prevalence is definitely more in females. So also, females are more likely to stay in an abusive relationship because of the social factors, because of the, sort of expectation of how we should behave rather than how we want to behave. So that is absolutely true. And then also because of the, notion of what will happen to the children for the sake of the child. Eventually what happens, and I've witnessed this firsthand in my practice, is because of that, trauma over time, it can lead to increased anxiety, it can lead to increased depression, it can also lead to full-blown post-traumatic stress disorder, which again needs to be treated. In extreme cases, I have seen it lead to active suicidal ideations. Actually, I'll give you an example. While working through Health Foundation Nepal, I had someone, and she is not an official patient, but someone shared this with me that every day she used to go from her house to the river to see how long does it take for her to walk, so that one day she wants to jump and drown herself. How should she do? And I'm sorry, I didn't realize that there are small kids here. This probably is a little sensitive topic, but so these happen, and there is the whole burden, it affects the mental health, for sure. The mental health of the mother and the mental health of the child. Now, let's talk about the financial aspect of it, right? Before I talk about the financial aspect, actually it's worth, talking about gender stereotypes. And we're all familiar with that to some extent. Gender stereotypes mean, what it means is how a person should behave based on their gender, rather than what their actual interests are. You can be a female and you might not like the book. You can be, but there is a lot of norms that people feel like they have to follow. And again, it relates to how much unpaid labor falls on the females. Things are changing, but it still is a certain barrier is there. And because of those gender stereotypes, there are financial constraints. So now, when we come to by the way, do you have any questions? I know I'm a good speaker. So there are we talk about the financial constraints, right? So let's understand what financial independence is. What is financial independence? Financial independence technically means if you're earning enough to sustain yourself, so the financial sustainability. If you're earning enough so that you don't have to ask for money from anyone in your life, that is true financial sustainability. But again, this is my experience from what I have observed throughout the year, throughout the period of years, is education can help you become financially independent, but education does not equate to financial independence, not necessarily. Financial independence sometimes comes without education too, in terms of if someone has a skill set they're willing to work on and market themselves and so on and so forth, right? The other aspect that I want to highlight, and again this is purely from what I have observed, is earning money and bringing money home is not always equivalent to being financially independent. And I'll explain why. It's because it depends on who controls the income. It depends on who has the say how the money should be spent in the household. If someone is earning money, bringing money, almost equivalent to their partner, but has no say in how the money is spent, I would not consider that a financially independent person, him or her. So, in order to be truly financially independent, we need to earn and we need to have some say about, where the money goes. Hey, I want to invest here and I don't want to invest there. It's my money, sort of, right? So, some degree of control needs to happen, right? So, these are the barriers in terms of socio-economic barriers, in terms of healthcare, and in terms of financial constraints. And again, it is very different in different parts of the world, in different parts of the society, in the same part of the world, right? So it depends. But what is the solution? What do we do? First of all, what I strongly believe is that the narration needs to shift from her and she should do it to we. We as a society should do it. Instead of asking why did she stay in that abusive relationship, we should ask ourselves, what did we do wrong as a society? How did we feel that someone had to stay in that relationship? How did we feel? So once we shift that narrative, then positive change begins to happen. There are certain other things that we could do in terms of reforming. The change has to be multifaceted. It cannot be unidimensional. And in terms of multifaceted care, right, there should be more focus on basic education. There should be focus on self-awareness. There should be focus on reducing the unpaid labor. Because let's be honest, if someone is working 18 hours a day, they have no time to exercise. Forget about that. They will sleep for the time that they take. So just providing them with that kind of awareness is not enough if we are not willing to provide them the essential support to do that. Just asking people to eat healthy is not going to be enough. if we are not providing them the grounds or the opportunities to do so. So it should start with the basic education, basic awareness, basic realization as a society that the disparity exists. Let's not be in denial, We shouldn't be in denial. The disparity absolutely exists, and it exists in every socioeconomic status. It exists in every race. It exists in every country. It's just a proportion might be a little bit different, right? So there has to be some sort of initiation in terms of like policy reforms as well. There has to be some sort of reforms in terms of how we approach women's health, in terms of like how we include female participants and how we make sure that their symptoms are addressed and considered. So these are the few things that we can do. So now we have talked about the challenges, the barriers, and some of the solutions. There are many challenges, but today, as I stand here, I want to reiterate the fact that we are not here just to talk about the challenges and barriers, right? We are here to celebrate. We are not just here to say that, in mental health, yes, the barriers exist. There is more prevalence of depression in females than in males. Anxiety disorders are more prevalent in females than in males, be it generalized anxiety, social anxiety, panic disorders, phobia, everything. Eating disorders are more prevalent in females than in males. So there are a lot of problems that we need to find a solution to. But as we gather here today, let's celebrate the females who were pioneers, who were trailblazers in their field. And I also want to thank them for working so hard and for striving and for being so resilient that they have made it easier for us. They have made it easier for us to dream. They have made it easier for us to pursue the dreams. And as I stand here, let me also thank the male counterparts who are so supportive, who are so progressive, and who actually believe in equal rights. So as I conclude my speech, I conclude by saying that we are here to see that we will continue the wonderful work that our predecessors have done. We are here to support each other. We are here to have faith in each other. And most importantly, we're here to create a village for ourselves. And we're here to sustain the village for the power of women. And one of the most important things to sustain the village is we have to give grace to each other. We have to give grace to ourselves before anyone else does that, before the society does that. We have to find ways to forgive each other, because as aunts, as mothers, as godmothers, as stepmoms, as single moms, as friends, as career women, as professionals, as homemakers, as grandmoms, we are far from perfect. We are not perfect, but we are good enough, and that's what matters. Happy International Women's Day. Thank you.
Thank you. What a wonderful speech from Dr. Susri Aja. Now to make this event more special, I'm honored to invite another inspiring leader on true zero to the stage. She's a powerhouse in the world of AI, an entrepreneur, a social change advocate, and a leader who has been making groundbreaking contributions in various industries like healthcare, aviation, and utilities. हामी सबैलाई गर्व लाग्छ कि उहाँ जस्तो प्रतिभाशाली व्यक्ति हाम्रो कम्युनिटीको